This is Barb. Testing, testing, testing. See how we sound on Friday, December 4th. Let me know if you need me to keep talking, Mark.
Say something.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything.
All right. I am testing the audio for the Rotary Club of Park Cities.
You heard that?
Sound good? Okay.
And there's no echo?
I don't know. I'm going to put my earphones on right now.
All right.
See, I'm
We're hoping we get.
You can talk a little louder.
Okay. Hi.
It's good.
It's good?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like we have a good audio.
Okay, and hold on just a moment.
Actually-
And
Testing. This is Barb. Checking to see how we sound. Good.
okay.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Park Cities. I'm so glad that you are joining us here today or later at your convenience. I am Barb Jeffries, this year's pandemic president of the Rotary Club of Park Cities, and this is our 20th meeting of the year. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have so much fun in store for you today. Lots of surprises. We'll have some music. We'll have a great conversation. Learn lots about the Salvation Army. As you know, they are one of our collaborative partners, and we are so happy to be working with them this year. I am going to introduce Ian Mudge. He is going to start off with our invocation and our prayer. And as you listen to Ian, I'd like for you to keep in mind, please, E.G. McMillan, one of our wonderful longtime members. He and his wife, Carmen, are in good spirits. E.G. is still battling cancer, but he sounds good, and he's going to come out on the other side of this. And then also Susan Harris. Her father passed away this past week at the age of 89. His name is Henry Herschel Tracy Jr. So if you would please keep E.G. and Susan in your mind as you listen to Ian's invocation, followed by the pledge and the National Anthem. Got a little surprise there. Mark Cashel will be up next, telling us who our marketplace advertiser is this week, followed by Kyle Marmillion to talk about our RCPC Foundation. I'll see you soon.
Let's go before the Lord in prayer. God, I thank you so much for all of the amazing opportunities that you've given us. I just want to give you the glory now for all of the amazing things that are happening in our lives, all the things that we have to be thankful for as we enter into this season of Thanksgiving. Thank you for our families and our friends, and for this Rotary Club, where we can come together in fellowship, whether it be in person or digitally, and come together to serve our fellow man. And God, right now I pray that you will give us wisdom and discernment. Help us to navigate life's troubles with grace. Give us peace and give us hope. Bless our leaders. Bless our country as we're going through all of the craziness with COVID and with the election. God, please bring us together and use us to help bring unity to our country and to our world. God, for all of the concerns that we're facing, I place those in your hands right now. Give us hope and give us peace, and help us to know that you're there and that your presence is with us, guiding and directing us and helping us to move forward. But most importantly, God, I thank you for all of the amazing things that we have, all the amazing opportunities that we've been given. Help us to remember to be thankful for the little things. and give us the strength and determination to continue moving forward. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
This week's Spotlight advertiser is a new advertiser, and if anyone else has interest in advertising on the back of the hub, please contact me. We have a few spots left. This week we're spotlighting Kyle Marmillion. In a time when we've faced unprecedented challenges, Rotarians have had to embrace the abnormal and deliver messages of strength, vulnerability, and resiliency. Like the Rotary Club of Park Cities, drive to make a positive impact in the community, Marsh McLennan Agency is driven by a passion to be there for our clients, colleagues, and communities in the moments that matter. As a full-service insurance brokerage, we work closely with the North Texas business community to develop comprehensive programs and solutions to meet their business insurance and employee health and benefits needs. For more information, please reach out to Kyle Marmillion directly to have a discussion about how MMA can be a valuable partner to you and your business. Kyle serves on the board of the Rotary Club and is a Longhorn alum. So please, let's thank Kyle for his support of the hub. Thanks, Kyle.
Hi, everybody. I hope we all had a great week and are really looking forward to everything as we get into this holiday season. A quick update on the RCPC Foundation Fund. So July of this year to present, we have received a total of $700 in contributions, with grants paid just north of $28,000. For the RCPC Bonton Fund, our total amount raised is $24,950. And just, please remember that, especially on the month of your birthday, we ask that you consider our funds and your charitable giving. And I will be, following up and just continuing to remind people that that our donations are needed, and we can't do it without the support of our excellent club. So thank you all. Happy holidays, and see you soon.
Well, welcome back, folks. How about that? Ian Mudge, oh my gosh, congratulations on that performance. He harmonized with himself, recording himself 4 times vocally and 4 times instrumentally. What a show. Thank you, Ian. That was over the top. What a great way to start a great program. I've got a few quick announcements before we get to today's program, which we're looking forward to. First is, as you know, with so much going on right now, with concerns about the spread of COVID, we have canceled 2 of our service opportunities. They are the Angel Tree and popcorn packing at the Scottish Rite. But as you know, that you can still adopt an angel virtually. You can do that online at the Salvation Army website. And then a little bit of business, our half-yearly dues are due. Actually, they were due November 30th. So if you could wrap those up, there's just less than a handful. try to get those paid by the end of the year, and we'll start 2021 with a solid 100, and I think we're at 145 members. So exciting news. Next week is going to be a club-wide Zoom call. It is our opportunity to see each other again and wish each other happy holidays. If you would, join the call at 11:30. We'll have 30 minutes of social hour and then start the program at noon. Happy Franklin, your president-elect, will be here conducting the program next week. I will be changing my hats from Rotary Club to Nurse Barb, taking Kevin in for his 6-week follow-up to his ankle replacement surgery, and hopefully he will get the go-ahead and be able to start walking and putting some weight on that new ankle of his. So with that, I won't be here to wish you a Merry Christmas or any other holiday. So I do hope everyone has a very, very safe holiday season this year. And then just a real quick recap of last week's tree lighting at Snyder Plaza. As you know, Tania and Jerry, the team, the dynamic duo, pulled off in a very short amount of time and a really very successful event. We had over 100 toys donated. Stan Wright was there putting up our RCPC Rotary Club banners. We worked in partnership with the University Park, and I think it was a very nice event. Hopefully next year we will be back to the block party and have all of you there. We had a little over 40 volunteers, members that day. So thank you all who volunteered. And just a minute to, again, thank Mark Neese for the job that he did. He was there with his entire setup, recording the full hour in addition to some spots before and after. So Mark, thank you from the club, from the Salvation Army, from everyone who you make all of our lives much better. Thank you, Mark. Well, next up, we're going to give you an opportunity, if you weren't there that day, to see just a real short video montage that was put together. It's just a couple minutes long, but it'll give you a sense of what was happening that day. So after the video montage, we will have Happy here to talk about the service opportunity tomorrow at the Salvation Army Distribution Center. And then we'll wrap up our pre-recorded segments hearing from our new member, Major Todd Hawks, and his new member speech. Well, take a minute and enjoy the next few clips, and then we'll be back in the studio with today's guest speaker.
Hi there. Happy Friday. Hope you're doing really well. I wanted to encourage you to sign up to join us for the Salvation Army Christmas Distribution Center. That's tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Salvation Army Christmas Distribution Center. It's at 9216 Harry Hines. Volunteers have to be 18 or older. We're going to be sorting gifts by location, family, unloading trucks, labeling incoming gifts, standing in a drive-by, drop-off procession, and accepting gifts from donors. It's going to be a lot of fun. Registration is a two-step process. You have to register with the club to let us know that you're coming, and then Salvation Army also has a sign-up process. So if you haven't already signed up, please do so, and we'll get you going. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to see each other this holiday season and be able to make a difference and see the Salvation Army Christmas Distribution Center where all of the magic happens for Angel Tree. It's going to be fun. I am so excited to introduce Major Todd Hawks. I'm so thrilled that he has decided to join our club out of all the clubs that are in the district. He is the area commander, and Major Hawks moved here from North Carolina in June. He has a great family, great kids. I'm just really thrilled and honored that he has decided to join our club. And he's going to be at the Salvation Army Christmas Distribution Center volunteer shift. And so if you haven't met him yet, that'll be a great place to get to meet him. So welcome, Todd. Major Hawks, we are so excited that you are in our club.
Thank you, Happy, for the introduction today. It's great to be on the call today. The good news about being on the Zoom call is you can actually see the lower part.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome all of you from the Salvation Army watching today, as well as our guests and also members. I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker's exposure to the Salvation Army commenced at an early age as he developed his passion for serving others as a member of the Salvation Army's Coventry City Corps Church. Born in Coventry, England, he immigrated to the United States in 1991, where he took up responsibilities as the internal auditor for the Salvation Army's National, Capital, and Virginia Division, before later becoming the business administrator for the Army's ministry in Richmond, Virginia. In 1997, our speaker was joined in marriage to Christine, a Salvation Army officer in her own right. Not long after, he entered the Salvation Army's College for Officers Training in 2002. Upon graduation, he was appointed as a commanding officer of the Army's work in Fredericksburg, Virginia. In 2018, after ministries in 2 other cities, our speaker was appointed to the Texas Divisional Headquarters, where he took up the present leadership appointment as the Divisional Finance Secretary. He now serves as a Chief Financial Officer for all 62 centers of operation. In addition, our speaker gives oversight to over 250 Salvation Army service units, which give community support to smaller cities around the state. Major Harris and Christine have been blessed with 3 beautiful children: Hope, age 21, Michael Jr., age 19, and Christian, age 16. Please give a warm welcome to Major Mike Harris.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. I want to start by thanking Lieutenant Colonel Orville Salmon, who, by the way, is my wife's godfather, for making this invitation. And of course, I would love to have been with Park City's Rotary Club live. This event, I know, is a highlight on the calendar, and it certainly would have been a highlight for me to look everybody in the eye and to say thank you for all that you do for the Salvation Army. Indeed, all that you do for your community through the Rotary Club and through the Salvation Army. However, today we're doing this through a lens, and I trust I communicate well enough through this lens to tell you really what is my story with the Salvation Army. I was a bit concerned about the medium that we were having at staying interesting, quite frankly. So what I want to do is to tell you my story and why the Salvation Army has impacted my life. I started out life in Coventry, England. That's already been said, and Coventry is a very historic town. You go back to 1050, before my time, trust me, you will hear the story of Lady Godiva and Peeping Tom. So the first Peeping Tom comes from my hometown. But perhaps a better piece of history I like to tell is actually some Salvation Army history that comes from my home of Coventry. The Salvation Army began existence actually in 1865 in the East End of London. Its original name was the East London Christian Mission, later to become known as the Christian Mission. But it was in 1878, by basically divine inspiration, that the founder of the Salvation Army, William Booth, changed the name to the Salvation Army from the Christian Mission. That was in 1878. Later that year, Catherine Booth, that's the wife of William, and we refer to her as the Army Mother, she came to Coventry to open fire. You'll get used to these quasi-military terms, to open fire. Simply put, start ministerial work in the city of Coventry. And she brought with her the first ever Salvation Army flag. The first flag ever was presented to the Salvation Army in Coventry. And today, whenever the Army starts a ministry, an expression of ministry somewhere, it starts with the flag. In the congregation that day, there was a family, Amos, Annie, and Eliza Shirley. A year later, Amos decided he was going to emigrate to America. And so he moved to Philadelphia with the instruction to his wife and daughter, stay here until I've settled and got a job and everything's in place, and then I will call you over. Now his daughter, 16-year-old Eliza Shirley, was a Salvation Army lieutenant. She was a Salvation Army officer at 16 years of age. And so she wrote to the founder of the Salvation Army and our first general, William Booth, and said, I'm going to join my father in Philadelphia. What do you want me to do? And he responded and said, no, you're my lieutenant. Actually, as we'd say back in England, my lieutenant. You're my lieutenant. You'll go where I tell you to go. She responded, no, I'm going with my family to Philadelphia. What do you want me to do? And William Booth's response was, then go start something. And so the Salvation Army was born in Philadelphia in 1879 by way of a family that comes from the same place that I come from in England, and that is Coventry. Now, I grew up at the Salvation Army Corps, and when we say Corps, that's basically a church. So if I interchange those words, you'll understand that basically it means a church. So I grew up at the Salvation Army Church in Coventry, and one of the things that I learned to do very early in life was to play a brass instrument. Were you to ask me, what does the Salvation Army do best around the world in the 128 or so countries that we're in? I would say, preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. That was what we were founded on. It's what we continue to do to this day, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's our number one priority. But were you to ask me, what does it do next best? I would say it teaches a kid how to blow a horn. And I'm a product of that. I learned how to play a musical instrument, and I am a tuba player. And so in 1987, the brass band from my home corps in Coventry toured the southern states of America. My first time outside of the country, and I was taken by America. So much so that I made effort to move here, and in 1991, I permanently moved from the United Kingdom to actually the Washington, D.C. area. And when I got there, I started to see things I'd never seen before. I've been in the Salvation Army all my life, and yet suddenly I'm introduced to the Christmas kettle. You might think that's rather strange. It's probably the most iconic symbol of the Salvation Army in North America, but I'd never seen one. And it happened to be that 1991 was the centenary year of the Salvation Army Christmas kettle. It began in 1891 in California, where Captain Joseph McPhee promised to feed all of Oakland's homeless. But when he made that bold claim, he then realized, well, I need to find some money to do this now. So thinking back to his days in Liverpool, England, and a thing called Simpson's Pot that used to sit on the docks where the fishermen were, it was a benevolent pot where money would be thrown in and it would help people who had needs that were in the fishing industry. So remembering that, Joseph McPhee got himself a cauldron, and above it he put a sign that said, "Keep the pot boiling." And the idea was people, of course, would throw money into this pot. And at the end of the season, he had more than enough money to feed all the homeless in Oakland. So good was the idea that other Salvation Armies the next year did the same thing. And before you know it, the Salvation Army Christmas kettle is everywhere. And you know all about that. In the state of Texas, just so you know, this particular year, the goal for all of Texas is to raise $8.7 million in those kettles. That sounds like a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. But when you consider that we are present in every zip code in Texas, you realize that that money does stretch a long way. Here's our concern. This year, we're trending about 30% below that. And the reason we're trending below that is, well, do I need to labor the point with COVID? We're not getting the volunteers we did. I get that totally. In fact, I completely understand it. But people are fearful of volunteering on the kettle. People aren't shopping like they have. We are hearing of records being broken for online shopping, so people have just got different habits this particular year. But I make mention of that to you because you're interested, and I know you're interested, that right now we're seeing a big drop in what is a crucial fundraising event for the Salvation Army. Another thing that I was introduced to when I moved to Washington, D.C. in 1991 is the Angel Tree program. And most of you will be familiar with the angel tree. You'll see these trees at stores. Walmart have them. A lot of the malls will have them. Businesses partner with the Salvation Army and put these little paper angels on a tree that will have the name of a child. Perhaps it's Mark, age 3, and this is Mark's shoe size, and this is his clothing size. And people take Mark's name off that tree and go shop and buy those items. And then we, the Salvation Army, give those items to Mark's mum in preparation for Christmas. It's a fantastic program. Here's the other side to COVID. 51% is the increase we're expecting to see this year in assistance through the Angel Tree program, in assistance with food for families, in assistance for Christmas. So we're sitting in this dicey position right now where money is low but need is high. Don't worry, we're going to make it work. Somehow the Lord always provides. But again, I know you're interested, and so therefore I share that information. So as has already been said, when I came to the States, I got work in the Washington, D.C. area, and by 1993, I'd settled into my position as an internal auditor for the Salvation Army. And again, I make mention of this because I think stewardship is a very important thing for people to understand. When you send money to the Salvation Army, are we careful with it? Being an internal auditor, my job was to make sure we were careful with it. We have a lot of internal policies, of course, I would make sure that they would adhere to, as well as general accounting practices. So the Salvation Army is very, very big when it comes to stewardship and accountability with the donated dollar. But there's also a personal stewardship element that I want to share with you. It was 1992, and I'm standing outside of a food line next to a Salvation Army Christmas kettle. Virginia gets jolly cold this time of the year, and in Middleburg, Virginia, which is just a speck on the map in Loudoun County, it was particularly cold. And I was dressed there like Mr. Salvation Army. I got my cap on, I got my coat on, my gloves. I mean, I looked like Mr. Salvation Army. And as I'm ringing that bell, at the corner of my eye, I see this man coming towards me that was as disheveled and scruffy looking as you could imagine. I mean, he looked like he'd slept in the hedge he was dragged through backwards. And I knew what was going to happen because it had happened numerous times. He'd see me, Mr. Salvation Army, and he would have a need. Not that I didn't want to supply that need, but standing by a kettle is one of the worst places to be able to help much. So in my mind, I'm creating the scenario. If he asks me for food, that's easy. I'll just take him inside the food line, we can get him some food. If he asks for money, that's tricky. I'm certainly not going to dive in the kettle, we just don't do that. But just giving money is always a tricky thing as well. If he needs shelter, and you get the idea of where my mind is going with this. So while I'm trying to think of how I will address this man's need, he arrives at the kettle, he puts his hand in his pocket, and he pulls out a quarter and puts it in my kettle. And with that, he walked away. And in that moment, two things hit me. First, I judged that man by his appearance. Shame on me. I should never have judged that man by his appearance. The second thing that hit me was he trusted me with his quarter. I'm pretty sure that he doesn't have too many of those lying around. Yeah, he took that quarter out and he put it in the Salvation Army Christmas kettle, believing and trusting that I and the Salvation Army would use it for the purpose he desired. From that day forward, I was determined to spend that man's quarter as wisely and as well as I could in the service of God through the Salvation Army. I continue to do that, and I will always continue to do that, to spend that man's quarter well and wisely. That's a personal stewardship attitude that I have, and certainly being the CFO of the Salvation Army in Texas, it's an expectation I also have of all the Salvation Army units in this great state. So moving on in my life, in 1997, a big banner year for me, I married my wife. By now I'd moved to Richmond, Virginia, and taken up a role as the business administrator for the Salvation Army there. And we had 2 children. We had our home, we had 2 cars, everything was going swimmingly, when suddenly God interjected and changed everything. He called my wife and I to Salvation Army officership. That's full-time ministry. The implications of that are we had to sell everything. We sold our home, all our possessions, our cars, and all of that to then fund our experience at the Salvation Army Seminary in Atlanta. Now, what was interesting about this, as an aside, maybe it won't be interesting, but I think it is, we'd sold everything in April. April the 13th, we moved out. That was my birthday. That's why I remember that date specifically. Yet we weren't to be in Atlanta till August. We were advised to sell our house as quickly as we could because the idea of having that hanging over our head while in the seminary was a tough proposition. However, what we did was the reverse, and we sold it early, and we literally were homeless for a period of about 4 months, where my wife and I and our 2 small children would bunk up with friends and with family and whomever would take us for that period of time. The reason I tell you that story is not for you to look at me and say, well, I did anything great, because that's certainly not the case. But it's to demonstrate that when officership happens, when full-time ministry in the Salvation Army occurs, it has to be a sacrifice. It doesn't work any other way. It has to be a sacrifice. But I then discovered what the biggest sacrifice of all is, because really possessions and money didn't have much of a hold on me in truth. That actually was not a hard thing for me to do. What is hard is the fact that I no longer have an opportunity to live where I want to live and do what I want to do. You see, the Salvation Army now, under God's guidance, sends me wherever they need me to do whatever they need me to do. So whenever you see these Salvation Army officers and we've got red on our shoulders, that's the life that we live. And I saw where Major Hawks earlier was installed as the new area commander of Dallas. Let me tell you, that's one of the most significant positions this Salvation Army offers. But he didn't ask for it, though I can tell with absolute confidence he delights in it. But that's the life that we lead as Salvation Army officers. And so we finish our seminary experience, and the Salvation Army now owns us. They send us where they want us. So off to Fredericksburg, Virginia we went, and there we enjoyed 6 wonderful years, and we saw more great expressions of the Salvation Army. I mentioned before I love music. I'm a tuba player, so one thing I wanted was a wonderful music program there in Fredericksburg. And I'm thrilled to say that by the time we left, we got a good music program that has gone on in leaps and bounds and changed children's lives. Very similar programs are run all through North Texas. If you go to the Arlington and the Yet Center, Youth Education Town, They have a SPA program, that's a School for Performing Arts, where young people are taught brass instruments, singing, dancing, guitars, and the list can go on and on and on. In fact, in Louisville, in this area, one of my favorite stories is of a really quite a new congregation. The Salvation Army in Louisville has not had a church or a corps for very long at all. But the people who are there are a lot of musicians. And so they decided, why don't we just go into our community and invite children in and we'll teach them music for free. We're not charging a single thing. So until COVID put a halt to it, every Tuesday night, children would just gather at the Salvation Army in Louisville and learn all about music. It's part of what we are. And really for us who are musicians, it's a desire to give back something that was so wonderfully given to us. And so there it was in Fredericksburg, we were able to do something very similar. In Fredericksburg, we had a very big social services program. You go to any Salvation Army, I can guarantee you're going to find a social services program. Simply put, a program where you've got caseworkers who are interviewing people who are at their wits' end. It could be that their electricity is about to be turned off. They're going to lose their power. It could be they're about to lose their home. Maybe there's medication that's needed, and the list goes on and on and on for things that are needed. And we had this very, very big program there. Let me tell you what COVID has done to that. We are now giving more assistance than ever. Because of the higher unemployment rate, the need is greater. People are knocking on our doors that have never knocked on our doors before. But we're still able to meet the need. One of the big reasons for that is we have been the recipients of CARES Act money. We're very grateful for the federal and local governments to funnel money towards the Salvation Army because we have the capacity and the ability to help people. But let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there who are in need right now and need to keep a roof over their head and need to keep their lights on. The other thing that I really encountered and learned a lot about while in Fredericksburg was the issues of human trafficking. Now, the Salvation Army has a long-term relationship with helping to fix or to deal with the issues of human trafficking. In fact, our story goes way back to the early days of the Salvation Army, when in London, England, a woman came down and sold her 11-year-old daughter to a brothel. 11 years old, sold by her mother. But this resourceful girl had managed to get away from this brothel and found her way to the Salvation Army, and indeed into the office of Bramwell Booth, the son of the founder of the Salvation Army. And she told him a story. He was disgusted, devastated at what he just heard, and so he ushered the girl into the office of his father, where again the story was told to William. William Booth, being a man of action and completely disgusted at what he'd heard, then contacted a friend of his called William Stead. William Stead was the editor of the Pall Mall Gazette, which was the Time magazine of its day. And when William Stead heard the story, he said, "We need to do something about this. I need to write an article." But in order to write the article, he needed to understand every step of the way. He needed to see this awful business in action. So they hatched a plan. And the plan was this. There was a woman who used to be in the sex trade in London who had been converted by the Salvation Army and was now a part of one of the congregations. And he said to her, "Would you be willing to go back into that business for this reason only? We need to sell a girl," it sounds rather awful, but this is what happened, a girl into this brothel. Once that's done, you need to usher her away, get her away. But by doing that, we've seen every step in the process, and the article can be written based on facts that have been seen. It worked perfectly. The girl was safe, the woman ushered her away, and the story was written. And boy, did that story cause a stir. It caused a massive stir in England. How come in Victorian England this could be going on? In fact, it went to the House of Commons. And in the House of Commons, they established then an age of consent, which was and continues to be in the UK 16 years of age. Now, as an interesting twist in this remarkable story, William Stead was then convicted of conducting the exact business that he had managed to bring about a law against. It's a very odd twist in the tale on that one. But nonetheless, the Salvation Army's work with those of human trafficking victims goes that far back. But it's still going on here, right here in the North Texas area. For instance, Stacy. Stacy was that young lady that you've probably seen on the corner of a street by a traffic light. Someone that perhaps society would say would be the least significant of all. Homeless, addicted to drugs, mental health issues, alcohol issues, and yes, prostitution. That was the life that Stacy lived. But at some point, she managed to find her way to the Salvation Army's Harbour Light program and sat in front of a caseworker. And the caseworker just came alongside this woman who had no relationship with anybody else. She had nowhere to go, and said, Stacy, if you're ready to change, we can help you with this. And so step by step, they were able to help Stacy deal with all of these issues. She got counseling as she got needed counseling, mental health counseling, certainly. They got her into Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. They gave her accountability partner. And through this structure and surrounding her with support, Stacy, piece by piece, got it together. She got herself off of drugs and alcohol. She got a job. She got a car. She became reunited with her family. This woman is as changed as anyone you could possibly imagine. And for Stacy to testify, she thanks God for what happened. She certainly is very grateful to the Salvation Army. And that's a ministry that goes on and on. And yes, I could tell many a story, but Stacy's is one of those great ones. Happened right here in North Texas. Well, it was a wonderful 6 years for us in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And as has already been said, the Army then sees fit to move us along. And so after 6 years, we were moved to Hickory, North Carolina. What a metropolis. If you're not familiar with Hickory, it's about an hour north of Charlotte. And it actually sits in a beautiful area because it's right in the valley beneath the high country, and the mountains surround us. And so there in Hickory, I was introduced to some more expressions of Salvation Army ministry. For instance, we had our first Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. You see, some years ago, some very bright people at the Boys and Girls Club of America and bright people at the Salvation Army realized, well, Boys and Girls Clubs, you've got some great programs. Salvation Army, you've got some great facilities. Why don't we marry these two organizations? And so what you now have are these Salvation Army Boys and Girls Clubs. Both logos are shown, and it's a great partnership. One of the great partnerships, I would suggest, in the nonprofit world. So what happens is we would go to the school, we would pick up the children, we'd bring them to the Salvation Army. They'd go straight in to do their homework. We'd have volunteers, tutors, waiting to go. And once the children had finished their homework, we had all kinds of activities that went on until parents came and picked up their children. In North Texas, you've got about 10 of these Salvation Army Boys and Girls Clubs, or some variation thereof. Almost every major community in this area has that expression of the Salvation Army, and in most cases, the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Clubs. Just wonderful, wonderful programs. And again, I referenced the Yet Center, the youth education town in Arlington, which is one of the most holistic programs that I've seen when it comes to caring for children, caring for young people. The other thing that I encountered or had for the first time as a Salvation Army officer while in Hickory was a homeless shelter, an 85-bed homeless shelter that was adjacent to the church facility. When dealing with homelessness, you're typically dealing with the most downtrodden and the most looked down upon people in society. And it's not an easy ministry because there are many quirky things and odd things, and there's a lot of habit that goes into the issues of homelessness. But I want to share with you as probably my final story, and just this wonderful story. And please know, as I tell a story of something that happens in Hickory, know that in North Texas, you've probably got as big a homeless program as the Salvation Army offers anywhere in the country. We have some of the best homeless programs here, but also dealing with that in the middle of COVID. Beds 6 feet apart means we've got less people we can take in. As staff, we're actually paying more money because of the danger that they're putting themselves in just by being present with this community, who very typically perhaps are not as careful as most of us are during the coronavirus. So please have that in mind as I tell now the story of a guy called Daniel who came to the Salvation Army in Hickory. Daniel was a lifelong alcoholic, 50 years of age, been drinking since the age of 12. Very skilled guy, very employable, but this alcohol was a massive problem. It was a problem for him, it was a problem for his wife. And so by the time he'd come to the Salvation Army, homeless for the first time in his life. He and his wife were estranged. She'd left for some other guy, and their daughter, who was 13, was taken from them, and they would never see her again. So Daniel was as low as you could imagine. But he very quickly got involved in the congregation side of the Salvation Army, the ministry. And Daniel suddenly became that guy that never missed anything. He came to everything, every church activity, Bible study, men's club, even joined the choir. And for 6 months, he was as regular as anything. And we got to know Daniel quite well. But one Sunday, he comes along and he brings with him his wife. Now, you might think that's a good thing. Well, we actually were concerned because we knew that she was his Achilles heel. And so he came with her for a couple of weeks, then suddenly he didn't come. Didn't come for week 1, didn't come for a second week, and we knew there was a problem. Now, by now, Daniel had moved out of the shelter. He was living actually in a hotel, but we didn't know which one. Until one day, I get a voicemail message from a clearly very drunk Daniel, and he told me where he was. Immediately, I left my office, and I gathered with me another member of the congregation, and we went over to this hotel. And we found Daniel in a state of great inebriation. In his room there, I remember this vividly, there was a small round table which had on it his Bible, and next to it a can of beer. And that image told me exactly what we were dealing with here. We tried to reason with him, but you can't reason with somebody who's drunk. So we left frustrated and disappointed, and then shared with the congregation, pray for Daniel, pray for Daniel. A young lady from the congregation said, can I visit Daniel with you? Absolutely, I said. So we went again, me and this young lady, to visit him. She gathered his beer as soon as she saw it and poured it down the sink. Daniel went to the refrigerator, got out another beer and popped it open in her face, clearly as a sign of defiance. You can't stop me from drinking, is what he was saying. Oh, that was so frustrating. Then she saw a bottle of pills. She said, Daniel, you're taking these pills? She said, you can't take that and alcohol. That will kill you. I don't care, was his alcoholic or drunk response. So again, we left frustrated. But still we prayed, pray for Daniel, pray for Daniel. The next Sunday, there was a couple in our congregation said to me, Captain, can I go see Daniel? I said, yes, please go see Daniel. So they went to see Daniel, and they found him lying on his bed in the fetal position, in agony, because of what this combination of drugs and alcohol had done. They got him to hospital. In hospital, he was able to become sober. We got him back into the shelter. We said, Daniel, you need to get rehabilitation on this. I know what I've done wrong. Well, unfortunately, he didn't, and we went through this cycle one more time. The second time, we had to get him sober again. We talked to one of our advisory board members who got him into a hospital. Being in the hospital meant that we could get him sober. So while he was there, I went to visit Daniel. I said, Daniel, this is what we're going to do. We've been through this twice now. We're going to get you to the Salvation Army's Adult Rehabilitation Center. These rehabilitation centers are phenomenal programs, 6-month programs with a very high success rate. They're free to the people going there. They're funded entirely by the donations of your clothes, of your furniture, of your car, whatever you want to give. That's how the ARCs, or Adult Rehabilitation Centers, are funded. And Daniel went to the ARC in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was completely successful. I was there when he graduated after the 6 months. We brought him back to Hickory. We put him first in the shelter, but then into a transitional living center that we'd since opened. Well, let's fast forward now. Daniel's been sober for 7 years. This lifelong alcoholic is now sober for 7 years. And he's a very productive member of society. But the beauty of that story is you see different elements and expressions of the Salvation Army working together. You see a homeless shelter. You see a congregation. You see an advisory board member. You see the Adult Rehabilitation Center. All these things combined change that man's life forever. Friends, I hope you've appreciated or got something of my thrill of working and being part of this Salvation Army. Your part is also very significant because I know you raised money for us. We couldn't do any of this, none of it, if you didn't do that. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, of course, it's Christmas time, and Christmas and music are synonymous with the Salvation Army. So perhaps I'd like to offer to you right now a video singing that wonderful carol, Silent Night. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was Elmer Trumpe, who's the principal trumpet player with the Dallas Symphony, and David Childs, Professor David Childs, who probably is as good a euphonium player as there is in the world. And if you were eagle-eyed, you may have seen me somewhere in the background of those videos. I have one question that I'd like to address, and the question that was fired at me, what is the greatest source of income that the Salvation Army receives in North Texas? And there's no doubt the answer is individual donations. We do, yes, get more grants than we have, and I mentioned before the CARES Act money, but it's certainly the kindness of people that we rely upon, and somehow they always come through year after year. So hopefully that answers the question adequately. And again, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity to stand before this wonderful club today. Thank you.
Major Harris, it was a great program today, and I'd like to thank Bob Grossman. I know we couldn't be in person today, but Bob, we'd like to thank you for all your years of service making chili. I'm sure going to miss it this year. I won't have to get out the Pepto-Bismol, but anyway, we sure miss it. And Colonel Orville Salmon, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to be in this position today. We can't thank you for all you've done for our club and the service you do for our community. And Major Harris, on behalf of the club, this is one of our most heartfelt program, and we're grateful that you were here today and to share your stories and the stories of the Salvation Army and the lives you're changing. And for that, we will be placing a book in your honor in the Preston Hollow Elementary School in your name and honor for being here today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been such a privilege.
Now, if everyone will join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, we'll build goodwill and better friendships. And fourth, we'll be beneficial to all concerned. And we are adjourned. Happy holidays.